Always the head bob, Dustin. Every show, we're just like head bobbing, bringing it in as we're going, right? And so we're doing head bobbing, rocking. Hey, everybody, it is Friday. You know what that means, right? It's Friday afternoon here. So that means it's another brand new episode of Because Cannabis here on Wayward Media. Dustin Kava, B.C. Wehman. Great to see everyone. Great show lined up for you today. We got two amazing guests today that I cannot wait to talk to. We just finished watching their film Mend with Dignity, which is available right now on Vimeo, on Amazon Prime, on Tubi. You can check out Mend with Dignity. You can also find the link to Mend the Doc in our comments below. We have the director, Kim Saltarski, as well as one of the subjects, Gary Pallister. Oh, man. Cannot wait to talk to Kim and Gary today about their film and about their journey, right? I think, Dustin, that's important. You're a patient in Ohio's medicinal program. Rob and Gary, the main subjects of Mend, the documentary Men with Dignity, are about that, about healing people. How pumped are you about today's show?
I'm actually touched that they would even take the time out of the day to talk to us about this. I really, really enjoyed the film, and it re-solidified a lot of what I thought about just compassionate care. And I'm stoked about this. Today's going to be a good day.
Healing and horticulture is the name of today's show. Compassion and care probably could have been the name. There's a lot of them with people like Gary and Rob, a lot of great words we could use. So let's bring them in just a second. Let's get all the plugs out here. Wayward Media, wayward.media. That's your website for all your favorite podcasts. We got Because Cannabis right now, Wayward Planet about to relaunch soon. Anthony Trav on there streaming games, other great documentaries coming. Can't wait for that. So definitely check that out. This is live. So next Wednesday, April 20th, be sure to join us for our 4-hour, 20-minute live stream. It's going to be weird. I had no idea what's going to happen. I had no idea, Dustin, how we're going to fill 4 hours and 20 minutes. But we'll make it work. We'll figure it out, right? Follow us socially at MeetWM, all that good stuff that you guys know about. All right, Dustin, let's go ahead and meet our guests here. Let's bring them in. Are we ready? Here they come. All right, let's bring in, there we go. We got Kim Saltarski, the director of Men with Dignity, as well as I said, one of our subjects, Gary Pallister of the film. Kim, Gary, thank you both so much for joining us on Because Cannabis today. We were talking right before we brought you in. We watched the film. We're very excited to have you and honored that you would take the time to join us in your busy schedules. So let's start there, Kim. Mend with Dignity, which is available on Tubi, available to rent on Amazon Prime and other places. Why this, right? Kim, you got a lot of films that you've made and produced. Why follow Gary and Rob, or what even about this industry or healing drew you to make this the subject of your next film?
Yeah, well, this was a very personal journey for me that involved to be so insanely fortunate to meet other healers like Rob and Gary and everybody in the film, and then the other films I've done on medical cannabis, which is basically patients helping patients. So I came by this extremely honestly, but becoming a patient in 2014, I had out of the blue a melanoma stage 3B skin cancer diagnosis. And that's the call you don't want to get from your dermatologist. So I had a little mole here that looked suspicious, and through some surgery and that started like, yeah, it's in my bloodstream. You got cancer. That's no fun. So as I was exploring what they had to offer, as it happens in this beautiful community that I've been embedded in for over 8 years, as a friend of a friend said, hey, have you heard about medical cannabis? And it can really kick cancer's ass and help build the immune system and all of that. And I said, what? I'm certainly very familiar with cannabis from a recreational point of view.
Sure.
But I was just ignorant. I just didn't realize the power of it. So I got on, people go to Rick Simpson and his site and hear his story, one of the godfathers of the DIY movement. And so quickly with a friend of a friend, I started doing full extract cannabis oil. And within doing the protocol, I've been cancer-free ever since. So that was personally fantastic. And also, I don't want to say it was simply cannabis, because I also adjusted my diet by going vegan. And one of the other incredible benefits of doing cannabis was that it really helped my fractured sleep, because I was an insomniac for years. And I think that's what burned out my immune system to allow this little cancer to come in and play with me. So doing all those adjustments, and then I found myself on the other side like, wow, this is great. I need to share this story. And my story is kind of interesting, but then I started hearing about even more interesting stories. And that's where Rob and Gary came in. And I approached them. And after some communication back and forth, I attended the very first cooking class. And after 5 minutes, I said, just stop talking, just let me roll on everything about you. So that's how it came. And then luckily we just got the film released.
It's an incredible. We actually just had a conversation with an amazing doctor, Dr. Bridget Williams, and there was a lot of the conversation about, cannabis isn't the only tool in the toolkit. There is so much more in your health journey. The diet, the way, just add to how you were thinking about your care, how you perceive the day. And I think, hearing you say that again is just, it's, I just wanted to reiterate that for a lot of the people that are listening, like, this is not the only tool in the toolkit. There is so much about your daily life that, you truly do have to change to get well. And it's just, I love hearing that. And cancer free for that many years is just, it's an incredible. It's incredible.
A true honor. Yeah.
So Gary, what are you like then? You're sitting there, you've been, living this lifestyle well before Kim found you. When I guess Kim shows up in this class and says, hey, I want to record you and start to put this out there. I would imagine, Gary, someone who's been a little anti-establishment was like, whoa, where are you going to turn the cameras? Are you a little apprehensive to be the subject of this film?
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for having me on your show. Greatly appreciated. And I'm of old school, so it took them about 3 years to get me to say yes, number one. I'm kind of the researcher of the team between Rob and I. I research out in the field with all the drugs, and he researches in the office with all the book learning, and it's worked out quite well. I guess we've all done our own research. After researching, I've only known about all this in the last 10 years. After researching for probably 30 years, I started to ask questions of, why am I so healthy? And I started to look into it, and I found out that the voluminous amounts of cannabis marijuana that I had used over the years had actually been good for me. And then I found out about the tinctures and the oil, and it just, I showed Rob the tinctures, and it took off from there. 2 tablespoons of tinctures I'm full of goosebumps now, has got us to where we are today, letting people know that this stuff really works and you don't have to get high from it. I said to Rob, after he took 2 tablespoons, I said to him, he said, pal, I got 5.5 hours. I didn't feel nothing in my back. I'm going, oh, buddy, please go easy. I don't want anybody hurting themselves, covering nothing up, right? But it's just taken off from there.
It is really amazing. It's funny, when I sat down to initially watch Men with Dignity, I knew it would be, I saw the trailer, knew it was going to talk about Rob, knew it was going to talk about Gary. But I think the biggest takeaway from me is not so much what you're doing, Gary, and what, Kim, you made. It's the ripple, right? The term that's used, this kind of effect. And Gary and Rob, your mission isn't about, it is about healing, it is about that, but it's about teaching people to then self-sustain, to pay it forward, which I think was an amazing concept. It's not so much, and I think when you get involved in medicinal cannabis a lot, even kind of off the radar, communities of help is what Rob and Gary are doing. It is a lot about, here's the product, and I feel like they often have stuff to sell, right? They often have some white labeled CBD that they want to put to the side, and it's not about that with what Mend is doing. Mend is teaching people to take care of themselves with the hope, and part of the mission, to teach other people. Is that something, Gary, that was important to you, that the teaching it forward part? How did that start, and why that focus, as opposed to, because you probably could at this point have your own products for sale and stuff like that, but it's not about the money. It's very apparent.
Rob asked me, pal, what can I give you? What would you like? And I looked at him, I said, just pay it forward, play it forward. And I said, because of being a local town boy and a druggie and a drinker, a little wild and crazy, I said, I wouldn't mind some respect. So, and that's how it took off from there. I said, Rob, how are we going to get all our friends into this? Because all they want to, they ask, how much do I have to take to get high, man? He says, no, pal. We're going to go and teach their moms and dads and their aunts and uncles and their grandmas. Oh, that works great. Now, if you want to get euphoric effects off the stuff, you talk to me. But if you want the all-around healing and the proper proportions, and it's good for your body, well, then you cook the way we do as I say, not as I do.
When I think about, ideas at scale and how to make the most profound effect with the least amount of resources, I think about, that you are not able to do this forever. No one is, and this idea, this notion that what you're giving is able to be sustained over and over and over again. And the people that it's coming from are the ones that are being trusted most by the family members. It's from their, their sons or their uncles or their aunts or their best friends of 40 years. And it's that type of education that tends to go the furthest. I say a lot in a lot of these classes that I talk to and stuff like that, that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with others. And that's what I saw in Mend, was that ability is like, this is something that truly has the ability to move mountains, and it's done with individuals, and it doesn't necessarily have to feel so overwhelming and so insurmountable. And I think what you provide for a lot of your community is just, it's profound, it's powerful. And there's a part of me that just wants to say thank you for, it's frightening to put yourself out there in that way. And in this case, you jumped off that cliff, and the effects are monumental. And so, I think Ripple resonates with me, and will probably resonate with me for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
They kind of pushed a bit too.
I bet.
I was busted a couple of times, and I guess the first bust that they tried to make such a big deal out of, when my father passed away 2 weeks later, I was maybe in a little bit of a different attitude and state. I learned to self-defend, and I self-defend in court whenever they take me to court, and deal directly with the judge, because what we're talking about is real. What we're talking about helps so many people. I get so discouraged because the cannabis oil that Rick Simpson educated myself and many others on, that saved Kim and mine and everybody else's life. And that man's been persecuted and put down. He was one of the ones that I followed, and now I make my own oil. I call it GAP oil, Gary Andrew Pallister oil, because I make it. And the results are overwhelming. Grapefruit-sized tumors dissipated with the doctor saying you're cancer-free. That's when I really started to stand up and be public, because I had now the testimonials proving that what we're saying and doing is definitely right. And the proof is there. And it did start with the little girl, Angelina, when the tinctures got given to her and she went 45 days. That got me up. That got me up out there and kind of running, because to do all this, I was kind of the head of logistics, which is a fancy name for the runner. But somebody had to do it, because back then it wasn't just totally illegal like it is now. So, you know what I'm saying? Now everybody's growing their own, and they're making. I don't have a job anymore. I'm at home. I'm an at-home dad now. But the results are overwhelming. Overwhelming.
Kim, Gary was just talking about Angelina, and that was one of the, You talk about goosebumps, one of the more powerful moments. It kind of comes, a little bit near the end, and it really, you made some decisions there to show footage that can, may have an emotional effect. And we had several, I guess, testimonials, for lack of a better term, several people that had worked with men share their stories. How was it meeting people? How did you figure out who to pull into it? And then just kind of on that technical side, what was that thought of putting the film together? The direction, you could have gone a couple different ways, but it was kind of felt like a lot of home footage, kind of following them around. Just some of those technical aspects of how'd you find the people? Were they willing to volunteer? And then what angle and why did you end up going with the kind of the narrative flow that you did?
Yeah, well, it all starts when I connected with Rob and Gary, and we had that first day together. Obviously we're feeling each other out on a personal level. Do want to trust each other, especially do they have the trust in me? I'm a brother, but they don't know that yet. I'm, in theory, a guy with camera. And when you roll a camera on someone, you have a lot of power, what you could do in editing. But it became so easy after I met Rob and Gary, and they learned of my backstory, and it just started flowing. So it was like, wow, you two are amazing. Who else can you introduce me to? And it was, basically Rob and Gary giving me a list of people, reaching out to many of those patients they had helped that were also paying it forward in so many ways. So, I think there was only like maybe 2 out of 50 people who said, no, I'd rather not. And I have complete respect for that, because as we all know, when you're in a healing crisis, it's one of the most personal, mind warping experiences you can ever do. So I have great respect for someone that says, I love Rob and Gary. They helped me, but I want to keep this private. And that was cool too. But I was really refreshingly surprised at the ripple, how people were like, yeah, let me tell my story. And so happy to. And that came to really the climax of the film, which is one of the most, every testimonial in the story of men patients is insanely powerful. But when it comes to Angelina, she was a girl at the age of 3 who started suffering, horrific epileptic seizures, and their beautiful parents had struggled for years and years trying to go through traditional medicine at the top hospital here in Toronto, Canada, and getting some relief, but not the kind of relief that we call as a quality of life or make parents sleep well at night. So knowing that Rob and Gary helped Angelina with the tincture that they make, I should clarify, the tincture that Rob and Gary make and is portrayed in the film and shared is a really simple, the way they teach it is anybody can do it with a crock pot, some glycerin, distilled water, and some trim or shake, just some basic cannabis, and you slow cook it and you get out, it's a CBD dominant tincture that's 2 parts CBD, 1 part THC, and therefore you don't get the euphoric high, and it can help in so many ways. So that's sort of the gateway medicine and teachings that Rob and Gary share. So Angelina had remarkable results, but we know that cannabis does not cure epilepsy. We know it can help with maintain the effects. And so they went on the journey. And so again, to be able to show that girl's story and access their home footage of her having seizures, I just have so much respect and love and admiration for those who shared their stories. And once I started putting it together, it became, it's not easy, because I shot a lot of material, but as it came together, and it took me a while to throw it together, but it's really Rob and Gary's story, how they teach, and those that they affected. It all came together quite beautifully. And I'm very proud of the film and excited that it could share, just to open up the discussion here, to destigmatize and show there's other ways of healing. And healing is not just cannabis, as we've said before.
Right off the bat in the movie, the interaction you show between Rob and Gary is just it warms you. It makes you smile. Was it natural to capture that, or because right off the rip, like I said, my hair would stand on the back of my neck when I see him pulling up to the house and getting out of the truck, and it's just like, yes, I know that true, honest healing is happening here. This is how it really looks. It's not a lab, and it's truly a truck pulling up to a house, a genuine person getting out, and the world changes, And so did you ever feel like you had to force those interactions between those two, or were they naturally as silly and amazing as they are?
I never had to force it at all. It's like I'm still sitting on a mountain footage that could turn into a mini series of just a Rob and Gary interaction show. So that was one of the beauties when you do a documentary, you know you've got something special when the subjects allow themselves to be themselves, and who they are is just wonderful. So that their friendship, and then what they decided to do with that friendship, what they discovered together, and a lot of credit, as Gary does, goes to Rob, who really took it and figured out a way. It's like, okay, how can we share this? Well, if we got to get to the grandmas and the aunts and uncles and the knitting circles to help them with their arthritic hands, as opposed to go to the teenagers and be mistaken that there may be something here in an illicit way, because they're getting so much of a stigma. This is a super conservative small town in Ontario. So to change minds and do what they've done on a community level, it's miraculous, because they did it with love and respect, and they just did it. And, if people weren't interested, that's fine. But if you're interested, come and teach your neighbor. And if you got some extra trim and shake you want to give to donate to make some tincture for the next person, drop a bag off. If not, here, take it. It was just phenomenal. And I just love Rob and Gary so much for it.
Yeah, no, it was obvious, and Gary is, when you talk in the beginning of the film about what you just said, Kim, about it's an skews older, right? It skews older, it skews more conservative. And then you have, someone like Gary, who I imagine for a while, Gary, you, as you said, you were maybe viewed as like a stoner or a hippie, but now all your peers are in this room, Gary, sitting in front of you and Rob, and it is a room of people, and a lot of them are 50 and over, and they look like grandmas, and they look like accountants, and they just look like everyday people who are trying to heal. Does that sometimes still, and one of the cooking classes you showed was standing room only inside the small shop. Are you sometimes surprised, Gary, sitting back there at these rooms with 40, 50 people in there, all, looking like a Thanksgiving dinner, but they're all there to hear Rob, to hear you talk about it? Does it sometimes still surprise you, the success of MEND, or did you always think that once it caught on that it was going to be a thing?
There was never any thought whatsoever. It just happened. But my proudest moment was at the barn when my grade 1 teacher was there. That was a very proud moment for me. And all those people that were in the room, a lot of them grew up around me, and I was a little hellion. And I never hurt anybody, but I was a little hellion, in the small towns, you have your little hellions. Well, I was one of them. And it does me proud to think that some of the ones that, were in the church congregation growing up with me, and some of the ones that were in the school growing up with me were actually at those classes learning from Rob and I and the team of people. Rob and I, yes, we're the two kind of main players. We started it, but it never would have happened without the team players and the ripple effect. The town of Meaford, we turned the whole town on. We got them saving dogs and cats and horses and people. My goodness. The lady says, Gary, we just come back from the doctor. And the grapefruit-sized tumor is gone. There's no cancer. And my wife, God rest her soul, Nadine, she never paid any attention to it. She was the rose. She was the rose amongst the thorns. She came up to me and she says, "You did that in 3 months." This particular case she followed and paid attention to. And that meant a lot to me that she paid attention, because yes, in 3 months, the grapefruit-sized tumor that was inoperable, because the women knew people that knew me, got the oil. I just supplied the oil. They did it themselves. The lady called me. She says, "Gary, my husband can't talk or walk." I said, "Don't give him so much oil." And they are now supporters of me 100%. We go back and forth on our politics and different things, and I love them dearly. I've never met them, but she's one of the ones of 10 that I personally have given or helped and made sure that they got the oil and did the treatment. Rob, I don't know how many he's done. I know how many he's gone through gallons of tinctures. It's been great. I just love it. Surprised? No. I'm very grateful and humbled that they're all finally catching on to it, because do you know how great it is for me to go and sit with 3 old ladies whose children I went to school with, who used to maybe say I was a little shit growing up?
And I think about, you were out in the ocean alone preaching this, and you were just yelling people on the beach going, guys, I'm telling you, this helps. Please come out in the ocean with me. This is a big deal. And the fact that you maintained yourself out there alone, being called the hellion, being, ostracized from a community that is so conservative about it. And the fact of you persevered, you stayed out there, you kept shouting, and more people started coming out in the ocean with you and getting on the board and getting ready to surf this wave with you. And it just, it's encouraging, because I can totally, I can relate and totally picture that whole scenario of what it's like to have to hide that you are helping, and it's this notion of the most innovative people within this industry right now are mostly coming from the background of having to hide. And we got a whole new generation that has never had that thought process as they think about the plant. It's already available, it's legal. They've never had that fear associated with the healing. And so it's a different thing for them. But for the ones that actually fought the war, actually were in the grind, in the trenches, putting their well-being at risk, their livelihoods at risk to heal. It's just, I have to just say, what you and Rob did was amazing. And it's not easy being the only one out in the ocean. And then it's something that you should be praised for, truly.
Yeah, I think it's good to just remind everyone, sort of in the context of the film, a lot of the cooking classes that you see there, it was done pre-legalization in Canada. So they were, not only are these people spending their time, they're risking jail time by showing up to a public cooking class with enough plant material that could be misconstrued as enough to be charged with dealing. But they're cooking it up, giving away tinctures, all of that. So it's one thing to have a good news story. It's another to be afraid because I don't want to get charged for it. But they did it respectfully and gleefully. And there was no, everybody, the police are driving by, they know, because they know Rob and Gary are helping their grandmas and probably healed their aunt, or maybe their mother, maybe their son. So it was sort of understood that way. But still, they continue to take the risk. When Gary drives that tincture to Angelina, that's not 100% legal back in that time. So they really need to, they didn't care because they knew there was something good, and they were doing it respectfully within the boundaries. And Gary's fought in court many times and very eloquently illustrated that. So I just wanted to put that in context. Yeah, they should be acknowledged that they went above and beyond something to say, I'll just tell my best friend and I'll keep it secret because I don't want to cause any waves. But they wanted to cause the ultimate ripple wave, and they have.
Absolutely. Is it weird for both of you? Is it weird to think now, going forward, it will be legal in your country, and it will be legal? I mean, Gary, you've talked earlier how you're a little older. You've been, cannabis has definitely helped you overcome the COPD and these things. You're at a spot now. It's going to be legal. Is that an odd feeling? Is that odd to think that future generations, kids right now, Angelina and them growing up, they won't have to worry about it, as Dustin said? Does that strike you as odd? Is it exciting?
If we can get the word out, a lot of people still don't know about the healing, because big pharma and government, they all want the control. They're trying to wait for me to die. They're letting all us oldies, and when we die out, then they'll have the full control. the whole industry right now, when they come on board and tried to legalize everything and open all these shops, what they did was they took all their little educated younger people, short, clean cut, nice, perfect, just what you want for the poster child. But they forgot about all the old guys that actually cleared the path for them, right? And now you see what they've done with the industry. They completely have kind of messed it up a little bit. There's absolutely no market, which I think is just wonderful because we've all learned to grow our own. And the government rules and regulations have made it that people really want to grow their own so that they know exactly what's going into it. And the big pharmaceutical companies, they hate people like me. I'm telling people, I will never, ever say I'm curing cancer, but I will say I'm kicking the hell right out of it. And so are a bunch of other people that are playing the same game as I am. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just a loudmouth. I'm a loudmouth that stands up. Every time the police come near me, I stood up and I made it count. Even the man that came near me with the television, CKVR, he followed me into court. It's always nice to have CKVR television crew behind you. The last bust I got, I had a car full of cannabis. The trunk was full, the back seat was full. I had a box full of stuff. I was going to the barn the next day. I figured I'd be a big hero with all the old folks, eh? We're all like 75 to 95. Oh, look at this. And then I got busted. So the police know exactly what we're doing because I told them I was a gatherer. And I go and gather things and give them and pass them on. And anyways, I've done my time in house arrest, my poor wife. That's what I said in court to the judge. They wanted me for a year in jail, and I said, no way, I'm going to fight you, starting with a charge of challenge number 7. And then I said, you want my DNA? And that's never going to happen. I am not a pedophile. I am cannabis, nothing else. And I said, that's between 3 and 5 years. So when you got the judge and you have the prosecutor, lovely lady, going eyeball to eyeball, trying to figure out what to do with this whole goat in front of them, that I'm making sense, you see. If you make sense and if you talk proper and to believe in what you're doing, and trust me, I believe, and I'm talking sense. I've got 2 books that I take into court with me. Intimidation Works, eh? I have a Martin's Law book, and I use section 262. And I have the Holy Bible, St. James Version, Genesis 11, 12, and 29. And don't think I haven't had a few police officers looking that up before the end of the shift, trying to figure out what the hell is this old guy talking about. I love it.
Oh,
They picked on the wrong guy.
You can feel your energy. It just exudes, right? Your energy, your confidence, your belief, right? And the positivity from it, which I think dispels a lot of these myths, which I think, Kim, what Mend with Dignity helps do, right? It takes, you always hear about the cannabis, and as Gary was alluding to, in Canada, it's become, people like Acreage and Canopy and these big companies that have taken over this mass produced. And one of the points, which was a very small little point that was, I don't remember if Rob or Gary made it, was talking, I think it was Rob, about using the leaf and using the stem and using all these pieces that Big Pharma is literally chopping and throwing away or just discarding because it's not as important, right? They want these dense buds and all this science, which is great. Don't get me wrong. There is some benefits to that, but that part of the entire plant, right? The entire plant, Kim, was really something that I thought stood out. How has it been for you, Kim, with this adult use legalization in Canada? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, it became legal in Canada in October 2018, and many of us celebrated that. But at the same time, when we looked and what the priority and how they laid it out, many of us in the community are extremely disappointed with the government and the way it has been rolled out. It really seemed like it just flipped a switch from, oh, you're all evil, to like, hey, buy really expensive recreational weed and let's really forget about the medical. Like, we were all hoping that this would be the medical revolution and it would fast track, and it is. Things are really moving in the right direction, but just not near enough. And then also they just monetize it still remains very obscene to us. So Canada did give the benefit of many of the provinces to grow your own, and that's what we ultimately at Mend and that promote is you want to have full power over your healing, know the medicine you're growing, know what pesticides are or aren't on it, and hopefully that you grow it without pesticides. So where we're left now is still lagging. The government is fixing a few little things, but they basically took the Tobacco Act, put in the word cannabis. It's been a sideshow. So it's interesting for us to watch on state side, which goes from places where it's super illegal to places where it seems like they've got it figured out, more like Colorado and different areas. So we are grateful in Canada the federal government took such a bold step. We are encouraging to lobby them to go be better and way better, especially for the patients. Recreationally, I'm totally cool with that. But this is a healing thing. And like, even just like you say, Rob and Gary realizing all the stuff that was thrown out for decades, known as trim or shake, because everyone just wants the juicy bud and you throw away the stems and the leaves, is a very valuable full spectrum medicine to use. Extracts, the canna butter, the cocoa canna extract, and the tincture that they make, it's magical. So they really have stepped up on so many ways to show how things should be done. We're not quite there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. And we just have to do better in terms of what this plant can do for those when it does work well.
One of my questions was going to be what you hoped we would what you hope the future would look like, actually. And a lot of what you said was a lot of those hopes was, I hope that that we can change some of the way, it was originally set up.
Yeah.
What changed, or in your own journey of healing and health, what do you hope that others can kind of gain from it? What was the biggest barrier in terms of, say, the educating of others about your journey on that? And what do you think is just the biggest barrier in general? Do you think it's political, or do you think it's what the neighbors and their friends might think, or do you think it's fear of some other kind?
Yeah. I think, well, if you don't have love, you have fear. And so the fear of believing the old story that we're told that cannabis is really evil, makes you crazy. But, that all just sort of shatters once, we realize we have an endocannabinoid system. It's highly documented, just like we have a respiratory lymphatic system. We have an endocannabinoid system that this plant is designed to feed us, to be in homeostasis, to be in perfect balance. So that's just incredible to get that information out. This is purely science-based, and this is the one sacred plant that can maximize that. And then, so we have to get over the old stories that we've been told. And I was like that too. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we had lots of recreational illegal weed and enjoyed that. I thought it was fun. As a family, I sort of drifted away from it. And then even when I was first told by a friend, it's like, hey, you got to try that, my old brain was like, yeah, but that's just to get high. And then I researched Rick Simpson, met Rob and Gary's like, duh, I'm learning. And so that's what it is. So it's part of the learning, and we cannot ever forget this for-profit health system that we're all slaves to in North America and around the world. It's a huge effect on what information is shared and what medicines can get promoted. And that's just fact. And because of this plant being specifically targeted to be put locked in maximum security prison so we can never study it, has really hindered a lot of science. So that those shackles are being unleashed. And so that's good too. But we can never dismiss that there's a huge money game at play here. And if you create a healing system, to me, cannabis is simply the ultimate dietary supplement that you should take. You should take it as a maintenance dose to not get sick. And when you get sick, you take it along with diet, along with exercise, along with right thinking, and addressing the emotional causes of disease and cancer, which is really a big thing. So you could pump all the cannabis, you could be a vegan, but if inside your head you've got some thing going against you, you're not worthy. When I was 5, that little brother stole my watch, but I got blamed. If that's eating away at you, you're going to die, right? So you got to deal with the whole thing that we're given this beautiful plant cannabis that can really help so many people, just get you into that right groove and help you just on a physical level because of our endocannabinoid system.
What's interesting, Gary, is Like, you've been growing this plant and maintaining this and talking about the healing well before, I think, buzzwords, and what Kim just talked about, the endocannabinoid system, is something that has been researched, become more well known in the last, say, decade or so. We actually interviewed David Yakubovich, director of CBD Nation, another great film that talks about the endocannabinoid system and how it works in a body. Another person who was not familiar with the plant learned it through the filmmaking. But Gary, you've been doing this for a while. And so CBD, which, kind of, to my knowledge, really came into the forefront like in the mid 90s through California. Some people started talking about it, but obviously you're before the internet, you're a little off the path. So you probably weren't in communication there, Gary. How did your horticulture or your growing process change? Like, when did you start to learn about CBD and focus on growing CBD plants? Or when has that been for you? Something that I think a lot of young people, as we talk about, like, we educate people on it now, but you obviously came to it, I think, naturally, right? I'm just curious how someone who hasn't been in the system really starts to learn about CBD and the endocannabinoid system and such.
In the beginning, watch this, hang on. When High Times was illegal, and we'd get a rag up from the States, by the time it went to 6 or 7 of my buddies, and they'd rip pages out of it and cut the articles out and just totally annihilated it. So there was nothing left of it. And we learned how to grow, yes, on our own. And then some of the guys are going down to Jamaica and actually learning. At first, it was a learning. I'm not actually a grower. I let everybody else do the grower.
Okay.
I'm more. I look after research and development, and they give me the material, and I research it, and we see what develops. And I did that now for 51 years. I can proudly say that the summer of '69 was my summer. That's when I started. And I think I've done just about everything with cannabis you can imagine. And then 11 years ago, I started to learn about it, to learn about trichomes and all the things that go into that. I can't even say the words. But all my education has been on my own, on the street. There isn't anything that goes through my hands that I haven't done first. Like, you got to know what you're giving to the people. And I'm really big on the oil now because it really makes a big difference in people's lives. And so there, a month ago, I did a gram of oil, completely greened out. Now I know why people think they should call the doctor or the experts. Completely greened out, 66 years old, and I'm on the bed, but that's okay. I'm learning. So about 5 days later, I only did half that. I could still stumble and walk, but I was sure buzzing. So I tell people you can't take that much because if it affects me like that, it'll wipe you right out. But it's just trial and error. And the results have been positive. That's why I stand up and I don't care. You can come every time they come near me now. I make big issue of it because and they're not going to come near me anymore because, like Kim says, they know what we're doing. They all know what we're doing. I tell them on Facebook what I'm doing. I use that as my podium because what I'm saying and what we're doing is right. And it's just not me. I'm just a loudmouth that's saying stuff. It's teamwork. It's everybody. It's you guys. It's everybody that's listening and watching this show. That's just one person and they're going to tell 10 more and it's just exploded. Whoever would have known that 2 old goats sitting in a kitchen and you give a guy 2 tablespoons, take 2, Rob, you're chronic like me, would create this. And I love it. Absolutely love it. And I want to just help more and more and more. And there's no way I would ever go industrial cooking. It's all done with love, with small amounts, because it's made with love in small amounts. And people say, oh, we got to get bigger pots. We got to get bigger. No, we do it small. And then people say, well, is this as good as the stuff you get in the store? And I say, who cooks better, Laura Secord or Papa Pipes? Right? Like, it's very simple. And we want to teach everything. I don't teach oil that's dangerous to make. You can learn that on YouTube. But the tinctures and the butter, the honey infusion, all that stuff that's good for you, we teach you all. The more people we teach, the more people we reach. It's pay it forward and ripple, ripple.
How hard? I mean, the most people that call you are in some genuine need. They're hurting in some capacity. How hard is it to be the one that is constantly seeing all of that all the time? I mean, is it really hard to go home at the end of the day and know, yes, you are helping, but just knowing that someone else is having a hard time getting up and going to the bathroom in the morning or whatever it might be, you know, is it hard to keep yourself going?
Sometimes I have the same as anybody else in doing what we do, kind of burnout. I was yet to meet Angelina because I get so emotional over her. I am an emotional fellow. I can have a quick temper and I can have an emotional breakdown. It's difficult. I was never trained. I'm a heavy equipment operator, so I wasn't trained. So anybody that comes near me, I get personal with. And right now, let me see, I got 2 lung cancers, one's 34. I told them, if I save you, if this cannabis oil saves you, I'm going to put a syringe in each finger and take all my clothes off, except my bathing suit, and run down the street half naked screaming, because we're not getting the word out enough. The word needs to go out that this stuff is good for everybody. The tinctures, the butter, the infused stuff. If you have cancer, the oil, the cannabis oil, the RSO oil, it's all good for you. It's really good for you. A lot of people are still stigmatized because they're worried about this person I got 2 brothers right now. I'm saving a mother. I'm helping the guy and his mom, but the brother doesn't believe in it. I think he's in a hurry to. Anyways, the 2 brothers are fighting over mom taking the oil that's trying to save her life. It drives me crazy, or I'll get somebody say, could you please talk to my dad? Oh, no. If you're not ready for this, I don't do any talking into anything. I got a lineup behind me. It's hard to keep up sometimes. But like Rob, I've never refused anybody. I've done without myself, like people have done without to look after me. It's teamwork. We all work together. I'm not a hippie. I'm an old man with long hair, but I love you and I love you. I love all of you. But you bite me, I'll bite you back. But I'll walk through fire to help you. I'll walk through fire to get at you. The main thing is what we found, this stuff works. Now, Rob likes to talk quietly, and I don't like quiet. I'm the drummer. I am a drummer. So everything I do, I mean, I got my dynamics. I can play quietly and I can play loud, blah, blah, blah. But I like to talk loud so everybody can hear me. This stuff works. Do your research. Put in tinctures made with glycerin, glaucoma, or high blood pressure, low blood pressure. That's just the tinctures. The tinctures, the butter. Our first patient happened to be the father of a man I was playing in a band with. The lead guitarist's father comes to me. He says, my prostate's hard. I want to deal with you. So I says, well, let's go and see my buddy. So the 3 of us are sitting at the table, and I says to Rob, I said, Rob, what if we kill him? Well, that man, the first month, the numbers went up, and I said, Christ, we're killing him. And after that, the numbers come down. They come down. They come down. The cancer cured up. No more cancer. And when he introduces us, he says, these 2 men saved my life. When he introduces Rob Mahy and Gary Pallister, these 2 men saved my life. And that's a proud moment for me because he was our first person to deal with, and he happened to be on the team. I'm bragging. He happened to be on the team of 3 that invented Interact in Canada. So I just stepped in, blue collar, just stepped into a suit playroom because his friends are all business people. Bazinga! It's the same with me. I just stepped into a whole bunch of artists. He's in filmmaking, but he knows a lot of people. It isn't just me and my buddies, you know, all the blue collars. Rob and I are blue collars. We all got our color of collar, but we all work together. Because if it wasn't for my blue collar, the suit wouldn't have a road to get to his office with. Oh,
Oh.
I did I hear you say that you were in a band?
oh yeah, I'm a drummer.
Oh, that is the
have
least
to know.
surprising
So
thing I've
you
heard,
answered,
actually.
So you were a drummer, and I just got to know what kind of music. I have to
Rock
know.
and roll, baby.
Yeah,
Rock and
come on,
roll.
Dustin. You knew that one was coming already. I got to tell you, one of my favorite shots, and by the way, you can find the Facebook page, the Instagram, as well as the link to Mend the Doc, Mend with Dignity in the comments below on YouTube. Also available on Amazon Prime to rent, as well as Tubi. Kim, one of my favorite shots, and I don't know why, it just caught me off guard. Maybe it's because I live in a state where medicinally we are legal, but adult use we aren't. And as you mentioned, United States can be odd because I can drive 2 hours to Michigan and have full whatever I want, but here I'm totally restricted. But one of my favorite shots that both made me like have anxiety but made me laugh was Gary on the side of the road with the giant dab rig, just going all in with the torch, lighting it up, side of the road, van open. I would imagine, and just listening to Gary go on a passionate pitch right there, that there is a lot of footage of those two interacting that you weren't able to share. Do you have any moments maybe that didn't make the final cut that you were like, man, I would love to show these two in their natural environment? Was there anything that was left on the cutting room floor? You had a little outtake at the end, a little credit scene. Anything you left on the floor that should have made it in, but maybe it was just a little too zany? They're quite the characters, those two.
Oh, Gary is the king of zany, but it's so hard when you shoot. I shot 26 days with them in total. So really, this could easily, if I had the money or the time, I could have made it a feature film. So it's always hard. What don't you put in? What do you put in? But there was really, I got sort of the A cream as much as I could. So this was self-financed. This was not produced by anyone else. So I did it all myself with a lot of great teamwork from different camera assistants, Brock Fricker, who did the sound with me. And this, of course, the incredible graciousness of Rob and Gary for letting me to hang out and be with them on the day. So nothing really stands out as like, oh, I should have put that in. That said, I'm hoping momentum can come with the film, that we can make enough proceeds that I can maybe go back in editing and release additional footage. We'd like to possibly, Rob and I were talking, I know Gary would approve, to release the cooking classes in full. We've got like 2 or 3 minutes here and there, but to release the whole cooking class, because it's impossible for Rob and Gary to keep up with the demand and just the physicality. Like, not everybody can go to Meaford, Ontario, or within 2 hours of Toronto to see them in person. So there may be some footage to come out of that. Rob and Gary together are always such a joy. I probably should just release an outtake. I could just release a 5-minute film with them laughing.
Is that something, Gary, you'd want to do? We're on here, we're on YouTube right now. We're having this conversation. Obviously, Dustin and I are in Northeast Ohio. You guys are in Canada. Gary, you're in Meaford, Ontario, so the small town, and now you're a documentary film subject, which can be viewed by anyone. Have you thought about that next step of maybe, to your point, Kim, bringing this to the masses, having this Mend with Dignity, almost a more frequent interactive electronic communication? Or is there something about the in-person that makes it work? Like, have you thought about broadening it, or do you just like the simplicity of the small cooking class?
I like the simplicity of a small cooking class, but I also like to expand on everything. Being a class clown who's performed on stage, both singing, dancing, and now playing the drums, really, when they picked on me, they picked on the wrong guy. I'm already a showboat. Rob, he likes to take the quiet in the back, yet he stands up front. They all listen to him. I tell everybody he'll provide the education and I'll provide the entertainment. I want to go as big as I can, brother. I want to show the whole world. Do you know that if we grew hemp and quit destroying our trees, here we go, where's my podium, that hemp We wouldn't have to destroy so many trees. It's a whole different show, I know, but I'm just saying, this cannabis, this is the thing, man. You don't have to get high. It's about healing. You want to get high, talk to me. I've been doing it 51 years. And as you can see, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm going to be 67 in May, and I still haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up. I guess I'll just continue on. I wanted to teach every person I can teach everything I know, plus they'll know what they know, plus what I have taught them. Teach the world. It's good for everybody concerned.
I know that from the bottom of my heart, we really do both appreciate you being advocates for change in all of this and coming on the show and the documentary and all the work you've been doing out in the ocean by yourself for the last, decades and decades. I know that, the both of us, you made mention of another show, and I know that we would love to both have you on another show to talk more in depth with some other topics, later on. But thank you. We, we appreciate you taking the time out today to really, give us a little introduction into you, the both of you.
Now, it was exciting, Kim and Gary, to get to know you guys as we kind of wrap up here. Don't forget, you can check out Mend with Dignity. It is available anywhere. Amazon Prime to rent, Tubi. You can check it out on Vimeo. Find the link below. Yeah, you can find that really easily. Visit the website, their Facebook page as well, to learn more about it. Any kind of closing thoughts, gentlemen? Anything kind of to say to kind of wrap up, to get your, final words out there?
Well, I just wanted to, again, Rob couldn't be with us this morning, and Gary usually likes to take more of these interviews and does great, but it just, a big thank you to Rob. And like Gary said, MEND, which stands for Mother Earth's Natural Design, is really a team. There's nurses, and there's just so many people part of the MEND family that have helped made it possible and are still moving forward. And I appreciate everyone in the film who entrusted with me their very, very personal stories about their healing journey, and also against the backdrop that, they were admitting to doing some stuff illegally, which takes a big step. So, I'm just so grateful that we are at a place where we are in a movement and in a community that we can have these sane discussions, talk about what works, what doesn't work, learn from each other, and just encourage everyone to do their research, consider if this healing modality works for you, and just really explore it, and the do-it-yourself way can sometimes be the best way. But if it's not possible for your living situation, just, know your dealer, heal yourself gently, and keep moving forward in a positive way.
Those are great words. How about you, Gary?
Research your illness and get to know your own drugs that you're putting into your body. Watch the food you're eating and love your neighbor. Hug one another. Much love. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad that you guys came on. I'm so glad that I was able to watch Men with Dignity, something that may not have come across our radar. We and Dustin, we watch a lot of different, cannabis-centric films, and it's just something that I probably wouldn't have found out about. So I was really appreciative to learn about it. The film, Kim, was really good to watch. It was good to watch. It was fun, but it was serious and emotional at the same time. So I would recommend anyone, obviously, just watching Gary here. I know you need to learn more about him. I know you need to see Gary in his element. And so Men with Dignity, Men the Doc is available. It's a great film. I would encourage all of you to check it out and show some support as well. Check them out on Facebook as well. Thank you guys for both being on Because Cannabis here on Wayward Media. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.